Hey friends, welcome back to another Puget Sound Hot Spots video. Today we're going super specific on the Tulalip Bubble, and that's what these episodes, these short 10 minutes or less episodes on how to fish a specific spot for a specific species on the Puget Sound. So today, one of my favorite fisheries, and I've got two of my favorite fishermen. One of them's a guide, one of them owns a sporting goods shop here in town. But we're gonna talk about the Tulalip Bubble for king salmon. Now, this opens up a little bit early in May, but before we get into regulations, rules, tides, times to fish, gear, and then a couple of advanced strategies, I don't know if we need to introduce these guys, but I want to start by introducing the guy to my right, Connor Martinis, owner of John's Sporting Goods right here in Everett. Go in there, get your gear. The cool thing about these guys is they got advanced fishermen that actually work there that can give you some great tips and gear to make your time out on the water a little bit more special. Then the guy probably to the far right needs no introduction. One of the top fishing guides on the Puget Sound and in the rivers, Ben Rosenbach with Mixed Metals Outdoors. In fact, I've learned a lot about fishing the bubble from this guy, and we were joking earlier about an advanced strategy. One of the advanced strategies is fishing the bubble is just go find Ben's boat and follow him because he always catches fish. I am going to say that as a joke, but some people do this as a fishing guide. Hey, out of respect for our guides on the water too, kind of give them some space as well if you are going to do that. But these guys are doing it for a profession, for a living, and we got to honor that. But let's get started, you guys.
Yes, sir.
So regulations, first and foremost, and there's some tricky rules, some cool rules out here. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about when the season opens. There's some dates that you got to pay close attention to because it's not open 7 days a week. And then we'll talk about when we actually do catch a fish, which ones we can keep and can't. And I think there's some good news around that.
Yeah. So typically it's Memorial Day weekend. We have Memorial Day earlier this year, so it's next weekend. So I'd assume that it's going to be next Friday. The bubble opens Friday through Mondays till noon. So we're kind of guessing on that number, but pay attention to the emergency rule change. They're going to tell you the exact date that you can fish it, but I would guess it's going to be next week. Yeah. The Tulalip Bubble, you get to kill 2 fish. It could be either or, wild or hatchery, and we are killing Chinook only. So those are your main rules. Obviously, barbless, 22-inch minimum, got to be larger than 22 inches. But yeah, the main thing is Friday through Monday, and Monday's only till noon, so don't fish any longer than that.
Yeah, I learned that the clipped, unclipped, the hard way. About 3 years ago, I was out there and I caught a really nice wild Chinook and just let her go.
Yeah.
And I could have kept it. So yeah, some specific rules you got to pay attention to. Definitely check your regs.
Yeah. The other one would be that there's a box that you're staying in. Mm-hmm. There's coordinates in the pamphlet of which area you could fish. Now, most of us are fishing from 60 to 200 feet of water, which you're well within that boundary. But there's a southern boundary to that, and there's a northern boundary. If you want the coordinates, plug them into your fish finder, and it'll tell you right where you can fish up to.
So I'm putting it on the screen right now, and these are estimates, you guys, just kind of using landmarks where you can't go further north and you can't go further south of these lines. But like Connor just said, that was the last rule or regulation I think you really got to pay attention to out there.
Yep.
I will say, watch out for crab pots.
Yeah.
I've lost a couple of, not downrigger balls, but some gear to crab pots out there. And not a lot. Sometimes they're not, you don't see the buoys. They're they're down there on the bottom. So be careful of that. So Ben, tides, time of day, some strategies around how to fish the bubble the best around tides and time of day.
You know, the tides, these aren't feeding, traveling Chinook. These are staging Chinook. I can't say one tide fish is better than the other. Rule of thumb is always, the fish are going to wash in, fish are going to wash out. They don't always just stay in front of the bay. Sometimes they'll wrap around the corner. Sometimes they'll travel north. Basically, once you find fish, you can kind of estimate where they're going to go just in which way the tide's pushing, right? They're getting ready to spawn. They're staging out in front of the creek. They're not going to want burn a bunch of energy fighting tides. That's the hard part about the bubble is it's basically a big fish bowl, right? And they're just sitting out front, spinning in circles, waiting for their chance to head upstream. So that's what makes it so hard in there and easy sometimes, But on those big outgoing tides, once that tide's fully dumped out, that's when you get out into a couple 100 feet of water. big incoming tides, that's when you get up inside into that shallower water.
So something that I know you helped me with this a couple of years ago, but are these fish actively feeding? So is chasing bait, if you see bait or if you see seagulls up on the northern end, I mean, like you'd normally do, go chase a bait ball.
Yeah.
Are they still, or is that still a good rule of thumb?
They're still feeding,
Okay.
not quite as actively like when they first turn the corner and are coming into Puget Sound. It starts to slow down a little bit as they get further in their life cycle, but they are definitely still feeding out there.
Okay.
Out there by that red can, there's a certain point about 3/4 of the way through high tide that a big needlefish, sand lance ball forms every day. Happens every day, same spot, and you can watch the birds come in there. And once you get in the middle of June, you can almost guarantee that those fish have figured that cycle out, and they're going to be in there beating on those candlefish.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Okay. And so as far as, tides and currents and everything, is this a fishery? I know you've talked about this before, but real quick, and then we'll move on. You got to be there at 5 a.m. You got to be there at the top, the outgoing. Okay.
No, I don't know what triggers those fish in there. This is the hardest fishery in Puget Sound to pattern these fish because there's no rhyme or reason for them to be going anywhere or coming from somewhere.
Okay.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Right. So these fish do get spooked. Bunch of boats going around over the top of them. 200 boats with sonar pinging off the top of their head. Sometimes it just takes a few of those boats to leave. You could be there all morning just grinding away, and all of a sudden at 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, you run into a big batch of biters for whatever reason they snap, let alone they've just been sitting there not burning quite the energy they are when they're traveling, so they don't require as much calorie intake. So they don't feed quite as aggressively, quite as often.
Does that have any bearing on how fast you troll for these guys? Are you slowing down for them, or?
Chinook fishing in general, I fish slow.
Okay. Okay.
2 to 2.5.
Okay.
I really don't travel any faster than
Okay.
that in there. I haven't found a reason to that I can ever remember anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
The bubble is one of those fisheries too where you'll mark more Chinook on your screen and not get a fish to bite. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
And I think later in the year, you get a lot of people that get discouraged. It's a lot like the lingcod fishing. The first week and a half, 2 weeks, it's full bore, 200-300 boats on possession bar. Well, now we have the bubble opening and you have shrimping opening, and people kind of forget about it, or they stop going, or they're discouraged because they didn't catch fish.
Right.
And those fish are going to still be in there. Later into the season, there'll still be plenty of Chinook to play with there. So
We've caught those fish clear into August.
Yeah. So don't get discouraged it's one of those places where you mark so many of them and you think you should be catching all these fish. And like Ben's saying, it takes just one little instance of a feeding frenzy for those critters to really spark up. And don't let it discourage you, for sure.
Cool. So general rule of thumb, let's say you're fishing high tide. General rule of thumb, depth, location. Where would you see yourself at?
Personally, I always like to start shallow. Every time we Chinook fish, we typically are going to start shallower and work our way out.
Okay.
Either tide, even if the tide was going out, I would still maybe start in, say, 50 to 60 feet of water, and I'm going to slowly make my way out towards 200 feet of water with every troll. But if I mark fish in a certain depth, I'm going to stick to that depth for a few turns, and then kind of depending on which way the current's pulling is going to be really where I direct our troll.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I play it there. We did it down at Jeff Head this year, where the one day we started in 75 feet of water, and that's where we ended up, and that's where we caught our fish.
Yeah.
General rule is I always start in 50 feet of water, and I'll make my way out to 200 feet of water. That's kind of how I like to play it.
The bubble, they're creatures of habit, right? I mean, there's spots that I have marked all over my fish finders that we catch fish. I'll generally start there. I usually don't travel up into shallower water unless I'm either searching. I've been through all my little routines and spots and haven't found anything, or we get later into the season and these fish start to school up. They'll travel in larger groups up into that shallower water sometimes. It also has to do with bait, right?
Yeah.
Where the bait's at. But yeah, I mean, you make a pass at 90 feet, you don't mark anything, don't make it again.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying they won't eventually be there, but like Connor says, just continually grit it out in your head and, you know, cover your bases, sweep the floor, so to speak.
Yeah. The other thing with the bubble is we're not necessarily fishing on the bottom all the time. It's one of those fisheries where one of our downriggers will for sure be bounce, hit the bottom, bring it up. Then on the other side, we'll kind of almost split the water column. If I'm in 50 feet of water, I'd probably run it at 30 feet and so forth. You know, I kind of almost want to be halfway between the bottom and the top and whatever depth I'm fishing. Cool. And it's another fishery where I'm not putting at least the one that I'm running suspended, I'm not going to put it 10 feet behind my downrigger. I'm probably going to do closer to 20 or 30 feet. In the instance where we're trolling and say we mark a fish, we're fishing 50 feet and we mark one, say, up at 25 feet.
Yep.
I have time to bring my downrigger ball up and hopefully get my gear to cross in front of that Chinook
There
space.
you go. Okay. The reason why we spent so much time on, you know, rules and tides and time is because that's what's going to put fish in your boat out here. We're going to move on to gear real quick. We got about a minute and a half left, and we're going to spend it on gear. I've thrown everything out there at the bubble. In fact, last year we weren't catching anything. There was 500 boats out there, and I put the craziest setup on there, and we caught a fish. I just want to throw something out there that was different than what everyone else was using. So in general, you guys, this is kind of your go-to, but don't overthink the gear side of things out there. I know Ben has told me this numerous times. Greens do really, really well out there. As you can see on the table right now, a lot of stuff with green. What do you have, Connor and Ben, that you suggest as your go-tos?
I of course will always start with my tried and true flasher and spoon. I like the Morning Mist flasher, whiteboard, has chartreuse on the back, has glow. I like the Killy McGee. That's definitely one that I'll start with. It's a green spoon. Typically what I'll do is I'll probably run a flasher and spoon on one side and I'll run a flasher and a hoochie on the other. These OG 236Rs are a phenomenal hoochie there. It's got chartreuse, has green spatter, has the orange stripe. It glows, and the water can be kind of dirty there, so I think a brighter color, or as far as glow goes, definitely will help with that case. But those are definitely the two on my playbook. The other thing I would definitely have on board are anchovies with a helmet.
Yeah.
Gonna run it behind a flasher, probably 5 to 6 feet behind my flasher, run an anchovy. That's always a great option. And generally that's gonna be my suspended rod. The one that I'm running up in the middle of the water column will be an anchovy. Okay. But that's what I would kind of do.
Cool. And this is what you're brining your anchovies in right here, the ProCure Brine and Bite.
Brine and Bite, rock salt.
I use the same stuff.
Yeah, this stuff's really good. A lot of the...
Add a little rock salt, maybe some bait brightener, but yeah.
Good.
Yep.
How about you, my friend? What are you using out there?
You know, there's so many different kinds of bait in the bubble. Your options are endless. From squid to candlefish to herring, smelt, anchovies. We've found them all in there. Cop car, cookies and cream, herringade. You cannot go wrong with a herringade. The thing I change most there is the size of my spoons.
Okay.
Right? I mean, last year we were down to 2 inches a couple of days and got bit on them. Got clear up to the 4 inches. Leader length, trolling speed, whatever it may be. Like you said, sometimes you just got to be different.
Yeah.
There is no real rhyme or reason to anything going on in that bubble other than the Chinook showing up to go into that creek. So,
I love it. You want more advanced gear tactics? Just come in and see, Connor and his crew down there at John's. They'll turn you on to a couple of additional items. I think, Ben, one of you guys just said it a minute ago, sometimes the water in there gets really murky because of the Snohomish River and tidal flow. We've done really well out there with anything white and glow. Like that little, what do you call it, white lightning? Hudson just crushed it out there last year with the white lightning.
That's a really good one.
So, but you were saying you'll go all the way down to the 2. So start at with the 3, the 3.0.
Yep, always start with the 3.0s and then travel from there.
Okay.
Right. Let them fish tell you what they want.
Okay, 30 seconds or less, Connor, advanced angler strategy for the bubble.
Mine was, don't be afraid to fish the evening tide. You have tide changes in the evening. Some people are the morning to noon and they're off the water, so it opens up a whole nother tide exchange for you, and it can be really good in the evening.
What about you, Ben?
Persistence.
Yep.
Don't let yourself get bored to death.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Every day it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great tip.
Yep.
So I want you to reach out to Ben if you guys are looking to hire a fishing guide. Ben's a great resource. I know he's super busy right now, but he knows the bubble as good as anyone that I've ever met, the Tulalip Bubble. Let's go down and support Connor at John's Sporting Goods. He's got all the gear. In fact, your shelves are stocked. I'm loving it right now. You are ready for the summer. That's it on Hot Spots around the Puget Sound. Stay tuned for our next one. We're just getting into the hunt of the salmon season. So excited to see you guys on our next episode. Bye for now.